Hey, known miscreant and top fan Matthew Lloyd, who I haven't seen much of lately. Hey, Matt. If we had the technology back in the early days of manned space flights that we have today, would we have ever left the moon? In other words, is the fact that we're not there now a result of inadequate technology at the time or a lack of will? I'm going to go with lack of will on that. Um, it's funny when you tell people, again, a major point I want to get to. It's funny when you tell people that it would have been much harder, it would have been impossible. Going to the moon was possible in 1969. Landing on the moon was a physical possibility. It was a lot of work, but it was possible. Making computer graphics that looked enough like that to fake it was absolutely simply not possible. It was not possible. And likewise, building a studio big enough to house this and keeping the inside in a vacuum, which you have to do because the dust doesn't behave otherwise. That's harder than going to the moon. Um, so the technology was there, and it was the will. And I think everybody, everybody. I was amazed, and I'm sure the guys at NASA were amazed how quickly public interest dropped off. The biggest failed sequel in history, with the possible exception of the Phantom Menace, was Apollo 12 because they had better cameras and they're getting ready to set them up, and Bean accidentally points the camera at the sun, cooks the sensor, and so now here we are with the second moon landing, no TV. That hurt him. 13 was dramatic, and then 14, people just stopped losing interest. I remember watching. I would watch every hour of it. Guys driving across the lunar surface in the buggy on Apollo 15 and kicking up all that dust, and looking down into Hadley Rill and Taurus Littrow and all of these other places. Got a lot more dramatic. Apollo 11 landed in the middle of a lake bed, practically completely flat, but they got more and more risky as they went on. But no, it's definitely a lack of will. It's not even a lack of will so much as a lack of interest. I mean, I don't know if it was me or somebody else said this, but it might have been somebody. Maybe it was somebody in the comment section on Stratosphere Lounge. They said, America is such an astonishing country that we got bored going to the moon. No, that's exactly right. We're bored with going to the moon after 4 trips. Been there, done that. They had, to give you an idea of how fast things were going back then, if you weren't there, Lost in Space premiered in 1965. You've got this family on board a nuclear-powered flying saucer that's going to take them to Alpha Centauri. And when they're making this series, the pilot in 64 or 65, they have to figure out when does this launch actually happen. And they wanted it to be as close as possible, so that it wasn't like 2,000 years from now. But at the same time, they wanted to give it some time, so they did a kind of a reasonable guess of when we might have a family-sized nuclear power flying saucer capable of getting us to Alpha Centauri, and they decided that the launch date would be in 1998. That was plenty of time for us to get there. Engineers in the early 60s and even into the mid 60s, NASA engineers were saying Saturn by 70, and not 2070 either, Saturn by 1970. And it was working, and something happened, and I don't know what it was. I don't know how to explain it. But it just evaporated. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. It's one of the great mysteries to me. Let's see here.